In the world of mirrorless cameras and advanced DSLRs, is the Canon EOS Rebel T3i still worth considering in 2024? So the Canon, this EOS Rebel T3i, was a game changer when it first hit the market. It came out in about February of 2011 and it quickly became a favorite among beginners and enthusiasts. But with all the technological advances we've seen in the last decade or so, you might be wondering, does this still hold up today? Alright, today I'm going to dive into whether the Rebel T3i is still a solid choice in 2024. We'll explore its strengths, its weaknesses, and who this camera might still be good for. But first, let's go over some of the specs for this camera. The Rebel T3i comes with an 18 megapixel APS-C CMOS sensor. This was pretty impressive back in the day, and it's still capable of delivering some pretty amazing images. When it comes to video, you're looking at 1080p Full HD at about 30 frames per second. I know it's not 4K, but for many types of content, this is more than enough. Most content found on YouTube and even through your streaming services is in 1080p. It's difficult for most people to distinguish 1080 from 4K, even if you ask them. So look at your TV at home and see if you can tell the difference. All right, let's talk about the ISO range. It's about 100 to 6400, expandable to 12800. This gives you decent flexibility in various lighting conditions, though it's not quite up to par with more modern cameras in low light. Not sure if you'll be shooting in the dark, but it does mean taking your lighting into consideration more intentionally, especially since most of our smartphones do really well now in low light. Autofocus. You've got a 9-point autofocus system, which works fine for photography, but when it comes to video, it's manual focus only. Something to keep in mind if you're shooting solo. It isn't a problem with a fixed set or if you're shooting in a studio like this, but if you're vlogging on the go, trying to hold up products close to the camera, things like that, these shots are pretty much a no-go using the T3i. One of the biggest standout features is it comes with a 3-inch vari-angle LCD screen. Not a lot of cameras had this at the time. This makes it easier to get those tricky shots, especially if you're shooting at weird and odd angles. And for my first rounds of YouTube videos, this was perfect. Because when I first started, framing was an issue, so I wanted to be able to frame myself, and articulating the LCD screen made it so much easier to do that, and it worked out really well for me. One of the other draws for me was the connectability. It has an HDMI out, USB 2.0, external mic input, which was big back in the day, and that still adds values today too. So back when I originally bought this camera, it was one of the very few that had all of these connections. And for making YouTube videos, using an external mic is pretty much essential. Onboard mics are okay for close-up shots, but if you're wanting to do any wide shots or if you're moving a lot, external mics are the way to go. So, much tighter shot, but let's talk about the performance in 2024 using the T3i. When it comes to image quality, the 18 megapixel sensor still holds up well in 2024. You can get some great stills with this camera, especially in good lighting. The colors are vibrant and the detail is solid for this entry-level DSLR. If you're planning to shoot video and you're comfortable being behind the camera, the Rebel T3i is still a good choice. The video quality is decent and the external mic port is a plus. I'm actually using it with my shotgun mic now. However, remember, there's no autofocus during video capture, so like I mentioned earlier, if you need to be in front of the camera, it might not be the best option, especially if you're going to different depths. In low light, the T3i performs reasonably well, but it's not going to compete with newer models. The ISO range is decent, but you'll start to see some noise at higher settings. And remember, the 9-point autofocus system is reliable for photography, but can feel a bit dated compared to today's advanced autofocus technologies. It takes a little bit longer. And again, manual focus in video, so keep that in mind. All right, now I'm back on the Lumix. But what are some alternatives? What else is out there in the same price range? There are a ton of entry-level and mid-range cameras available today that offer things like 4K video, better autofocus, built-in Wi-Fi, but they also come with a higher price tag. And speaking of price, one of the Rebel T3i's biggest selling points in 2024 is its price. You can find the body for around 90 to 100 bucks, or 150 to 175 with the kit lens or some sort of aftermarket lens. It's a bargain for anyone on a budget. Are there better options for the same price? Maybe, but you'll likely have to sacrifice some things like the external mic port or the articulating LCD screen. Again, it depends on what you want to use it for. So, should you consider the Rebel T3i in 2024? Maybe. I know maybe not the answer you wanted, but maybe. If you're just starting out in photography and don't want to spend a fortune, the T3i is still a solid choice. It's a great learning tool with manual focus that can help you understand the basics of taking photos and even taking videos. This is also a good choice for those who shoot occasionally and don't need the latest tech. This camera will still get the job done. The image quality is good, it's easy to use, and it takes great action shots of your kids, and you don't have to worry about being rough with it. It's only about $100. So the other option is also if you're a professional or semi-pro looking for a backup camera, this camera, the T3i, could be a reliable option. It's inexpensive. It can serve as a safety net in case your main camera has issues like batteries or something breaks or something like that. It's always a good idea to have a backup plan. And again, for $100, definitely not a bad choice. You could do worse. So let's talk through some of the limitations. We touched on it as we've gone along, but I wanted to bring them up again just so you're aware. The lack of 4K video, the lack of Wi-Fi, and the big one is the lack of video autofocus. For me, that's a real deal breaker now, but it's not a deal breaker for some. And if those features are important to you, you'll definitely want to look elsewhere. And when it comes to lenses, while the T3i is compatible with a huge range of lenses, it doesn't support some of the newer lens technologies, which could limit your options. But the used market for these lenses, the Canon lenses, is huge. Just make sure you get the right mount or the right adapter. So, is the Canon EOS Rebel T3i still a good choice in 2024? From my perspective, it's still an amazing camera for photography. You can get some great stills. It's also a good camera for video if you're behind the camera, but if you're a vlogger or a YouTuber who needs a lot of selfie shots, I'd recommend skipping this one and getting something else. At the end of the day, it's all about what you need. If you're looking for a budget-friendly camera with solid performance, the T3i is still worth considering. But if you're after the latest features and tech, you might want to invest in something more modern. Maybe 2017, 2018. And if you're especially conscious on a budget, and that's why you clicked on this video in the first place, don't underestimate the power of the camera in your pocket. Most modern cell phones can and will outperform the T3i in most scenarios. It's true, you can always get the nice bokeh from using a DSLR, but you likely will have higher res, autofocus, low light capabilities, and a better directional mic. Not to mention, you can get external mics for your phone too. So all those things are huge pluses. And I'd love to hear what you think. Do you still use the Rebel T3i, or do you have another favorite budget camera? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe for more product reviews and content creation tips. Thanks again. I'll see you next time.